I gave them over to the Silent Sisters, to be sent north to Winterfell. Jory would want to lie beside his grandfather. It would have to be his grandfather, Ned thought, but Jory's father was buried far to the south. Martin Cassell had perished with the rest. Ned had pulled the tower down afterward, and used its bloody stones to build 8 cairns upon the ridge. It was said that Rhaegar had named that place the Tower of Joy, but for Ned it was a bitter memory. They had been 7 against 3, yet only 2 had lived to ride away. Eddard Stark himself, and the little crannogman Howland Reed. He did not think it omened well that he should dream that dream again after so many years. After Robert's rebellion came to a close, Ned Stark searched for his sister with 6 of his bannermen. The Tower of Joy was the location of a 10-man fight that culminated in the death of Ned's sister, Lyanna Stark. The fight and the preceding dialogue has captured the imagination of fans since the day Game of Thrones was released. There is, however, much debate over the details and implications of this fight scene, which is introduced to the readers as a dream of the young Lord of Winterfell. So today, I bring you my analysis of the Tower of Joy. He dreamt an old dream, of 3 knights in white cloaks at a tower long fallen, and Lyanna in her bed of blood. In the dream his friends rode with him, as they had in life. Proud Martin Cassell, Jory's father, faithful Theowald, Ethan Glover, who had been Brandon's squire, Sir Mark Ryswell, soft of speech and gentle of heart, the crannogman Howland Reed, Lord Dustin on his great red stallion. Ned had known their faces as well as he knew his own once, but the years leech at a man's memories, even those he has vowed never to forget. In the dream they were only shadows, gray raced on horses made of mist. They were 7, facing 3. That last line is the first of many important juxtapositions. Ned's opponents number 3, which is a number repeated in the story in reference to the 3 heads of the Targaryen dragon. This makes sense because Ned's opponents are loyal to the Targaryen family. Ned and his men number 7, which is a number repeated in the story in reference to the faith of the 7, the gods of Westeros, but not the gods of the north, not Ned's gods. They were 7, facing 3, in the dream as it had been in life. Yet these were no ordinary 3. They waited before the round tower, the red mountains of Dorne at their backs, their white cloaks blowing in the wind. And these were no shadows. Their faces burned clear even now. Ned refers to his own men as gray race, evoking death and darkness and villainy, whereas he describes the men facing him as knights in shining armor. Not only that, but the white of their cloaks are juxtaposed by the red mountains of Dorne. White and red, the colors of Ned's enemies, are the colors of the weirwoods. They are the colors of the old gods, of Ned's gods. Ned depicts his enemies as doing the work of the old gods. They are in the right, and he depicts himself and his men as the villains in this story. He says that he knew the faces of his own men as well as he knew his own ones, but has since forgotten them, as they are the less important villains that must be defeated. In contrast, the faces of his opponents burn clear even now, and he remembers in explicit detail what each man was doing when he first saw them at the Tower of Joy. Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, had a sad smile on his lips. The hilt of the great sword Don poked up over his right shoulder. Sir Oswald Went was on one knee, sharpening his blade with a whetstone. Across his white enameled helm, the black bat of his house spread its wings. Between them stood fierce old Sir Gerald Hightower, the White Bull, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Ned's opponents were members of Aerys' Kingsguard. Actually, they were the entirety of the Kingsguard. Sir Jon Darry and Prince Lewin Martell died on the Trident with Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Sir Barristan Selmy was injured there and later joined King Robert. All of Aerys' fighting men were off fighting, so there was no opportunity to replace the fallen Kingsguard. There was also no need. Aerys was perfectly safe under the protection of Sir Jaime Lannister, whose presence in the capital ensured that Lord Tywin would come to King's Landing if the rebels came too close. With 2 Kingsguard dead, and with 2 more switching sides at the end of the war, these 3 men Ned faced at the Tower of Joy were the entirety of the Kingsguard. An important detail to consider when looking at the following dialogue. "I looked for you on the Trident," Ned said to them. "We were not there," Sir Gerald answered. "Woe to the usurper if we had been," said Sir Oswald. "When King's Landing fell, Sir Jaime slew your king with the golden sword, and I wondered where you were." "Far away," Sir Gerald said, "where Aerys would yet sit on the Iron Throne, and our false brother would burn in 7 hells." "I came down on Storm's End to lift the siege," Ned told them, "and the Lords Tyrell and Redwyne dipped their banners and all their knights bent the knee to pledge us fealty. I was certain you would be among them." "Our knees do not bend easily," said Sir Arthur Dayne. It's important to remember at this point that the war is over. At Storm's End, the last of the Targaryen army surrendered to Ned. Through this dialogue, Ned comes to realize that these men had sat out the entire war, but are determined to continue the Targaryen cause. This is perplexing, considering the current state of the Targaryen family. "Sir Willem Darius fled to Dragonstone, with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him." "Sir Willem is a good man and true," said Sir Oswald. "But not of the King's Guard," Sir Gerald pointed out. "The King's Guard does not flee." "Then or now," said Sir Arthur. He donned his helm. "We swore a vow," explained old Sir Gerald. This is completely baffling. Through Ned's line of questioning, we learn that the royal family has been slaughtered. The King's Landing has been sacked, the Targaryen army has surrendered, and the prince and the pregnant queen have fled for their lives. In the conversation so far, the Kingsguard have said that Rhaegar would still be alive and Robert dead if they were at the Trident, that Aerys would still be alive and Jaime dead if they were in King's Landing. So these men probably don't see a good chance of Viserys and Rhaella surviving without their protection. Right now, Stannis is pursuing the prince and the pregnant queen after the Baratheons and the Lannisters have slaughtered the rest of the Targaryen family. Yet the response of the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, a man who seems to be of unwavering loyalty to the Targaryens, his response when Ned brings all this up is to point out that the one person guarding the prince and the pregnant queen, who are in clear mortal danger, is not a member of the Kingsguard. He's a good man for doing what he's doing, but not a Kingsguard. Remember, Sir Oswald Went, Arthur Dayne, and Sir Gerald Hightower are the entire Kingsguard. The implication here is that if Willem Darry were a Kingsguard, he would join the entire Kingsguard in defending the Tower of Joy, and not protecting Prince Viserys, Queen Rhaella, and the unborn Daenerys Stormborn. The Kingsguard does not flee. The implication is that if Willem Darry was bound to the vows of the Kingsguard, he would be guarding this tower and not the last remaining members of the royal family. This doesn't really make any sense. The primary duty of the Kingsguard is to guard the king. It's literally their name. But the Kingsguard don't seem to be protecting any remaining member of the Targaryen family. The Kingsguard are unconcerned about the remaining Targaryens, as they don't view it as their duty to protect them. This doesn't make any sense. It's as if Viserys isn't the last remaining male of the Targaryen line. It's as if Viserys isn't the heir apparent. It's as if Lyanna Stark somehow comes before Viserys in the Targaryen line of succession. It's completely baffling. This isn't the only time Sir Gerald Hightower references a vow, though. In A Clash of Kings, Sir Jaime Lannister recalls the death of Lord Rickard Stark, Ned's father, at the hand of Mad King Aerys' pyromancers. After, Gerald Hightower himself took me aside and said to me, "You swore a vow to guard the king, not to judge him. That was the White Bull, loyal to the end, and a better man than me, all agree." The swearing of oaths to guard the king is also brought up in the next book, A Storm of Swords, and A Dream of Sir Jaime. "I swore an oath to keep him safe," Brienne said to Rhaegar's shade. "I swore a holy oath." "We all swore oaths," said Sir Arthur Dayne so sadly. The shades dismounted from their ghostly horses. When they drew their long swords, it made not a sound. "He was going to burn the city," Jaime said, "to leave Robert only ashes." "He was your king," said Sir Darry. "You swore to keep him safe," said Dwyn. "And the children, them as well," said Prince Lewin. Prince Rhaegar burned with a cold light, now white, now red, now dark. I left my wife and children in your hands. The Kingsguard does not flee. We swore a vow. Ned's wraiths moved up beside him, with shadow swords in hand. They were 7 against 3. And now it begins, said Sir Arthur Dayne, the sword of the morning. He unsheathed Dawn, and held it with both hands. The blade was pale as milk glass, alive with light. No, Ned said with sadness in his voice. Now it ends. As they came together in a rush of steel and shadow, he could hear Lyanna screaming. So now the epic 10-man fight begins, that leaves all but 2 dead. Many fans wonder, why were they fighting? These are honorable men defending Lyanna, and Ned would surely defend his sister, so where's the issue? The issue is that these are honorable men. They obey their king's orders, even after the king has passed. The Kingsguard does not flee. So why does their honor lead to fighting? Because of how the war began. The war began when Mad King Aerys ordered the deaths of Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark. Although Aerys is dead, his Kingsguard are honor-bound to fulfill his command. When the passage first introduces these 3 Kingsguard, it says that Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, had a sad smile on his lips. The Kingsguard don't want conflict any more than Ned does, but they are honor-bound to kill him. Ned's wraiths moved up beside him, with shadow swords in hand. Clearly, these men were protecting their lord from the 3 Kingsguard. The only detail we get from the actual fighting is that Howland saves Ned from Sir Arthur Dayne. They called him the Sword of the Morning, and he would have killed me but for Howland Reed, Bran remembers Ned saying in A Clash of Kings. It's quite possible that Martin Cassell died as his son did, protecting Ned Stark from a Kingsguard. As they came together in a rush of steel and shadow, he could hear Lyanna screaming. "Eddard!" she called. A storm of rose petals blew across the blood-streaked sky, as blue as the eyes of death. "Lord Eddard," Lyanna called again. "I promise," he whispered. "Leah, I promise." "Promise me, Ned, and I promise," haunt Ned Stark throughout his time in the story. Much speculation has focused on the nature and the details of what was promised, and although we can't be exactly sure what Ned promised his sister on her deathbed, many fans believe it was a prince that was promised.